Today on Locked On Canadiens, the cap is going up. There's plenty of intriguing UFAs on the market. We're going to get into how silly the GMs are going to get. Plus, should the Habs trade Kaiden Guhle?
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Laura Sab, also known as The Active Stick. You will have seen my work in the past at Habs Eyes on the Prize as a producer on Hockey Primetime, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Ian Boisvert. You will have seen his work on Rabid Habs and the Build podcast. Ian, are we ready to talk about an idea that I blatantly stole from Blue Sky today?
Yeah, let's. I mean, look, we're in silly season, but we're also in stealing content for ideas season. And you know, geniuses borrow and they don't steal. So you will give this person credit for what this was. So it's not
very
truly
much
stealing.
true. So I think his name is Reese Albrecht on Blue Sky. It could also be a she. Sorry. I think this year's UFA class has real potential to be as breathtakingly funny as the 2016 class was. Better talent available, but there's a lot of cap space sloshing around for, like, I don't know, Pius Suter getting a 7 years by 8.25 deal or something like that. So I think, yesterday we were kind of talking about the Habs have pretty much, if two first round draft picks, but then Utah's looking to trade their fourth, and then Chicago's looking to trade their third for immediate help. But here's my question. They should just wait a week and go crazy on the UFA market.
Yeah, I mean, I think the post on Blue Sky points out pretty well that, like, yes, the crop is a little bit better than it was in that 2016 year. I'm trying to remember was that that wasn't the Carl Alsner year. That was the year after, right?
I believe so.
But even so, like, that era is full of all of those signings where you just kind of hold your nose and look back and I'm like, geez, what was going on back then? But I think a lot of those teams are afraid to do that sort of thing. What's funny with Chicago is they were spending like drunken sailors, like back when they were still trying to tank.
Mm-hmm.
like when they brought in Corey Perry and paid him a bunch of money, and they brought in Nick Foligno and Taylor Hall. They paid these guys so much money.
They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to tank.
Yeah, and I don't know that they're going to know how to spend either. Like, that's a team like Chicago. I would kind of say don't do that at all. Like, just wait for, like, they have a lot of young prospects, a lot of really good players coming up in the system. Frank Nazar took some steps forward this year. They have other guys coming. Like, I'm not worried about the Chicago Blackhawks eventually turning this around, assuming that, they don't completely burn out all of the goodwill that Connor Bedard has for that franchise. I will say, like, I don't know that we will see the level of stupid spending this year that maybe we saw in the past. And the reason I say that is, yes, the cap is going up, but the crop, yes, there's some good players, but, like, I think the top guys are going to get top dollar, like the Aaron Ekblads. Aaron Ekblad, if he doesn't stay in Florida, is going to get a ton. Brad Marchand, same thing. Sam Bennett, same thing. And then, like, it kind of falls apart after that. And maybe you have a musical chairs situation where you don't want to be the last one left without a chair, and maybe a bunch of desperate GMs. Like, Edmonton probably does something breathtakingly stupid.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
That's a team that I would look at and go, you are not emotionally prepared for the moment that is going to happen on July 1st.
Very much so. They're getting back on the market right after being dumped is what's happening.
Yeah.
Not a good idea, generally speaking. Not only that, but with the Oilers, Connor McDavid today was talking about how he's not in a rush to sign and winning was the most important thing. And I don't understand if he was just saying that or if he was trying to send a message, right? I get that he's frustrated, but, like, let's be honest. The Edmonton Oilers have come closer than anyone to the Stanley Cup in the last couple of years without winning it.
Yeah. And I think Connor McDavid might be the prime example of why teams don't spend this year. That little nugget from Connor McDavid, where he basically said he's not in a rush, he's going to talk to his agent, he's going to talk to his family, and they're going to make some decisions. Doesn't seem like, and maybe he's just, playing it safe. He's playing his hand the way that he ought to. But if he's not, and that is a bat signal to every other team in the league that he's going to be available next summer, maybe you don't spend in free agency this year, and you hope next year you can woo Connor McDavid into coming and playing for your city. I don't know. I think in hockey, it's like Occam's razor, but the boring version. Like the most boring outcome is typically what happens with the megastars in this league. I bet he signs an $8 by $15 million contract on July 2nd after he watches everybody move around, and it's the end of that. Like that conversation is over, and then you might have some teams that were hoping he'd be available going, crap, we have to do something. Like Pew Suter, Lars Eller's 36, but throw money at him. Like that's like the kind of mistakes that I think you'll end up seeing at that point.
Yeah. And okay, so let's talk about the Montreal Canadiens, because when I saw that tweet, that Blue Sky post, the first thing I thought was, I am so glad that this is the front office that is in charge right now. I am so glad that it's Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes. And let's be honest, like, I think that, Jeff Molson will probably be annoying them and be like, okay, get someone. Who have you gotten, right? Like, like who's the guy that's going to bring us over the edge? But I think that at the end of the day, like, they will push back. They won't just listen just for the sake of listening, and they will be able to convince him of their argument. I really do think that if anyone is going to try and be impatient and do something like that, it'll be the owner in this case and not Kent Hughes or Jeff Gorton. I firmly believe that they will just not do something really stupid.
Yeah, and I think the Canadiens this summer, the way they're going to add to this team is not via free agency. That comes, I think, next year, because Carey Price's contract will be off the books. They'll be out of LTIR. I mean, it might be off the books as soon as this summer if the Canadiens can find a deal that they like. But, you've got, Laine's contract coming off the books next year. You have Kirby Dach exiting his contract. You have Mike Matheson exiting his contract. Like, next year is the year to take a swing at a free agent if you can attract one to come here.
Yeah. And you hope that all the other teams like really take advantage of the increase in cap space and like really push themselves up against it right away.
Yeah. And right now, and this is kind of the situation the Canadiens find themselves in, is they're probably more looking towards the trade market to try to build their team. They're armed to the gills with prospects and draft picks, and yet so is everyone else who's trying to do the same thing. So like it looks like we are headed into a summer once again where maybe it doesn't look like the conditions are right for the Canadiens to strike and do something worth talking about. I'm not going to say stupid because we don't know it's stupid yet. But I just don't think that we can expect them to play in the free agent market. They don't have, yes, they've got some cap space, but they don't have that much, and they have to pay attention because, Lane Hutson's going to be up for a contract next summer. Ivan Demidov is going to be eligible for an extension next summer, and you have to start thinking about, how you're going to pencil those guys in and get them under the cap.
Yeah.
I think that's, I know it's boring because we've had 2 summers of them doing practically nothing until Kent Hughes makes his mid-August, what the heck are you doing trade that ends up, usually working out pretty well. But unless the Canadiens have an iron in the fire that we're not aware of and of a guy who we don't know is available, I'm kind of anticipating that we're looking at a summer of just kind of watching the other guys go out there and make a lot of stupid mistakes. Go watch Buffalo do something stupid. Go watch Detroit or Ottawa or all those guys go do something stupid, and you just sit back and wait.
Yeah. And I want to point out that the Montreal Canadiens sat back and waited at the trade deadline, and they made the playoffs over a whole bunch of teams that did things. So I think it's really important to remember that they are willing to be patient because they think the right thing is going to come along. And I don't think that this is a situation like we had with the previous regime where they just sat on cap space and they said that was valuable and they didn't do anything, right? I don't think that was patience. I think that was an inability to have confidence that you can make a good move. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Speaking of improving the team via trade, we had an intriguing proposal from one of our listeners about trading potentially Kaiden Guhle. And up next, you'll hear what the proposal is and whether we should even explore it. That's coming up in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in the building, and it's summer right now. Festival season is happening right here in Montreal. We've got like the Jazz Fest, we've got Just for Laughs, we've got so many events, music, comedy, all kinds of stuff. And Game Time is going to make getting into the building fast and affordable. Game Time gives you last-minute ticket deals, zone deals for deep discounts, panoramic seat views, and all-in pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ticket prices often drop the closer you get to the moment of your event, so you can score big without overpaying. You save huge with zone deals, and right now, zone deals are offering 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA World Cup matchups. Seeing the exact view before you buy, honestly, will give you all the confidence you need. And also, they have the all-in pricing. It's honestly a life hack for getting incredible tickets on the fly. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. It is Friday. It is time for the mailbag. This time next week is the draft. So we're going to be all excited about that. But today we have our regular mailbag, and our listeners, as always, came through for us. Ian, what do we have in our first question?
Well, we've teased the Goalie question twice, and I think we need to answer this now because I believe Kay from Game Over is on her way to both of our houses to come yell at us and jump in front of the microphones and tell us what she thinks.
I was going to say she's not heading to our house.
Correct. Our houses.
I think she's heading towards to the listener's house.
Oh,
I
yes.
think
We won't reveal their location. We're not going to dox our listeners here.
But Kay's already in their walls, just so you know.
Yeah, Kay's already there. Nathaniel Hers asks, Habs send Goalie and their 16th pick to Chicago for Connor Murphy and their 3rd overall. Laura, what are your immediate thoughts when hearing that trade proposal?
Okay, well now Kay's in my walls because I'm listening. When I hear that, I'm listening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad this was asked because I think if you want that 3rd overall pick, this is the kind of deal you will have to put in front of the Blackhawks.
Yes.
If not a more lucrative one. I think that people don't trade out of the top 3 very often, top 5 very often, top 10 very often. So to get there, you have to put a serious offer in front of that team. I think it sends the wrong message. And the message should be that you are banking on guys like Goalie, right? If you're going to trade away from this roster, it is aging guys or it is prospects who haven't fully made their jump to the NHL. Kaiden Guhle was a massive part of why the Canadiens got to the playoffs last year. He got hurt in the middle of the year, but he was incredible down the stretch. The fact that he even came back was astounding. This is the value. Like, this is what you're going to have to put together in a trade package if you want one of those picks. And I'm really hesitant to move on from Kaiden Guhle. Now, it would solve the issue of the logjam on the left side, but you're now weaker on the left side.
Yes.
So, and you're not just moving a guy out for the sake of doing it. This isn't like trading Jonathan Kovacevic. This is trading your number 1 left shot defenseman. So it'll be interesting to see, how the Canadiens solve that logjam, but I don't think this is it. But This is the right value for that pick. So I'm glad this question was asked because everyone's like, just throw a bunch of stuff at Utah and get number 4. I don't think that's going to happen.
Utah doesn't want a bunch of stuff. Utah wants like Ivan Demina.
They want what we want. All these teams who want to do the same things all want the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, that's why the market is kind of just completely busted up. Let's go to Claude Sauvé. Hi guys, assuming Primo gets traded, what do you think about signing a veteran goalie to back up Montembeault in Montreal instead of Fowler and Laval? If Montembeault ever got injured, I'd rather see, as an example, an Alexander Georgiev backing up Dobich in Montreal. That would allow Fowler to continue his development in Laval. I guess the question is, can Dobich at 24 continue to develop in Laval? It's a great question about, goaltending development in general. What are your thoughts there about grabbing another veteran veteran goalie?
I personally think the Canadians won't do it, but I see the logic in there. I see what Claude is getting at. I think the situation with a veteran goalie would be if and when the Montreal Canadiens have moved on from Sam Montembeault, and maybe they've decided that Dobich is the guy, then they get a veteran to kind of help them along. Or if and when it is time for Jacob Fowler, that's when they get a veteran guy to back him up and be a mentor and bring him along. I think those are the two situations, like an Alex Alt type of guy, right?
That's a perfect name. Yeah, Peter Budaj. Remember Peter
Or
Budaj?
Peter Budaj,
Those were the days. I know Georgiev is not the name for me. We call him Forgiev because he gives up 4 every time he plays. Like that's to me not an option. But I think the thought behind the question is correct. The goal needs to be to insulate Fowler and keep him in Laval and make sure he can start regularly in Laval.
Yeah.
We talked about potentially bringing in a veteran option for Laval. The problem is like you're getting a veteran AHL goalie that maybe you call up if you want to keep Fowler playing in the minors. I think ultimately, like Montreal would probably be okay playing Fowler in the NHL next year if it's just for a few. They just need to get him in there because it's they have an injury in net. So I understand the thought behind that. It's always difficult to get those guys through waivers at the beginning of the year. So if you sign a veteran guy, you're going to need to waive him to send him down to the American Hockey League. And at that point, like, do you not just have a lot of the same issues that you've had over the last few years where you end up housing 3 goalies because you don't want to lose any of them on waivers?
Yeah, exactly. I think that it opens up that problem and then you're messing up other people's development.
Yeah, totally. All right, next one from Claude. Further to your discussion on acquiring a large, nasty SOB for the right side of the defense, if Anaheim would be willing to retain some salary, do you think Trouba is an option for 1 year, or do you think it would be sacrilege? Is it possible that they might consider Gudas and Trouba to be redundant at that position? Alternatively, what do you think about Ristolainen for a couple years? I'm sure his price tag would be higher, but do you think it would be worth it? They already have a few vets on defense and might want to make some room for Oliver Bonk. That's the Flyers, of course. Let's start with Trouba. Your gut reaction to Jacob Trouba, the Montreal Canadien.
Sacrilege.
Yeah, I also just kind of think he sucks. Like, I kind of just think he's past his prime to a point where he's not really playable anymore. They got him for the leadership, for the violence. I get that. The Ducks probably need that stuff. Montreal does not need to go down that road. Ristolainen, I think the price is just too high, both on acquiring him and then his cap hit. He makes 5.1 for the next 2 seasons, and he's also been very bad.
Which, to me, to be clear, like 5.1 is way too much for Ristolainen.
Yeah. The Flyers would have to retain, and at that point, why would they do that?
Yeah. And also, like we all laughed at Philly when they got Ristolainen.
Yeah, it's not a player in contract that have aged well at all.
Yeah.
And we already knew that it was bad when they started. I think, though, Claude is on the right path. The solution on the right side of the defense is one of Reinbacher and or Mailloux making the team and being one of those guys. And the other is a veteran guy who can come in and fill that Savard role so that you don't have, an Arbor Xhekaj playing that role or a Jaden Struble playing that role. It's why they're interested in Nick Hague. I know he's a lefty, but he does play the right side and he does almost exclusively kill penalties. Yeah. So like that to me is where they're looking. And the fact that like everything was like everyone's going after Nick Hague and we still haven't heard anything. What's going on there? I don't really understand why we all had to care about who was getting Nick Hague for 2 weeks and now it's just completely silent. Seems unfair to do that to anybody that watches this sport. But that's the idea. They want a big guy who's going to eat pucks and do nothing else.
And that's my thing is that if it does end up being Reinbacher and or Logan Mailloux, like they both need to get a bit meaner. They do. They need to get meaner. I know Logan Mailloux's halfway there. I feel like there needs to be more thunder and more like, lightning to his game.
Yeah, agreed.
And on that like terrible analogy, Let's move on to and actually like a really intriguing question. Who has more value? Is it Dach or Newhook? And we'll get into that in just one moment. Before we get into the rest of the mailbag, we have not plugged our contest at all this week, I don't think. We are giving away, this is for YouTube. So if you're listening and you're not subscribed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Locked On Canadiens. We are giving away Ian's memorabilia. We love to do that. And we're giving away 2 signed photographs. One is Josh Anderson, looking very handsome. And then another one is Arbor Xhekaj, looking very sheriffy. And they're both signed, and we will be giving them away once we hit 4,500 subscribers and 5,000 subscribers. We are getting there. The draft is coming up. We are going to be with you all summer, although we do go down to 3 days a week. So there's plenty of fun content coming. There's free agency. Maybe we make fun of other people's stupid mistakes, and maybe the Canadiens make one and then we have to rant about it, right? And don't forget that Kent Hughes always pulls off a summer blockbuster. So you want to be around for that. So make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to enter the contest, just type the words contest entry in a comment. You only need to do it once. You don't need to do it every day. You don't need to do it multiple times. Just do it once and we'll put you in a spreadsheet. We've got I think 200 at this point. We've got plenty of people. But we want to make sure that, you guys get these signed pictures. So subscribe and leave your comments. All right, let's get back to our mailbag.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you saw me frantically looking for the pictures. I still have them. I've misplaced them at my desk. They haven't gone anywhere, so that you will still get them. This is why you need to take my stuff away from me. I cannot be responsible for these photos any longer. Anyway, next question from Francis Tardif on Blue Sky. Who has more value on the trade market between Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook? I find this question to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't think either of them have particularly high trade values at this point.
Not right now, I don't think. I do think though, if you're talking today, I don't think either one of them has that high value. I think it's going to be very similar. If you're talking a year from now, there's a pretty good chance that Kirby Dach would have extremely high trade value, and in that scenario, the Canadiens wouldn't want to be getting rid of him.
Yeah, and I think Kirby Dach is probably the one that a team would take a bigger swing at.
Yeah.
Because he's still an unknown quantity at this point in his career, and he's a big right shot centerman who at times has proven that he can play like a little bit of a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Who I think still has some room to grow and has just been really devastated with knee injuries. And if a team can convince themselves that those are a thing of the past and that he has room to grow, I think he would be the one that has the most value. But at that point, if another team thinks that, shouldn't the Canadiens also think that? Unless they definitely have more information on the player. Yeah. But at that point, if you're Montreal and you're like, well, maybe the injuries are a thing of the past and we're expecting him to come into camp next year and play a really valuable role, then why would you move him? Right? This is a guy under team control. He's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of this deal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're talking about, a really big step forward for him next year. And if it's not, then there's probably no trade value anyway.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be a Locked On Canadiens Extended Universe deep cut. But for those of you who remember the Habs statistician, RIP the podcast, we do miss him. We're still in touch, actually, and he had an injury that was similar to Kirby Dach. So he explained all the details of how long it truly takes to get back. And, I think that was one of the things was, give him some grace because it really does take that long to get back from an injury like that. And like we pointed out, it's probably important for Kirby Dach to see a sports psychologist at this point.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think every professional athlete should be seeing a sports psychologist just for a checkup every once in a while, quite honestly. All right. Next one from Mouse of the West. The quest for 2C. Lots of teams are looking for immediate help, so the market for mid-round picks may be bad. You have good company there. I believe the same thing.
Yes.
If that's where the market is, should Montreal trade some redundant roster players for a mid-first pick, or needs another year prospect? Who should go? What hole for the 26-27 team should we fill? What are your thoughts there on moving a vet out to sort of capitalize on the idea that this market is more of a seller's market? Should the Canadiens be in that space? I think it's kind of interesting to shift our mindset into maybe they should sell right now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially since everyone is expecting them to buy, so they want to drive up the price. Whereas if Montreal changes the narrative and says, "Here's what's available," people will think, "Oh, these people are still in a rebuild." Right? They're not doing the immediate help thing anymore. The conversations might shift, right? The propensity to try to squeeze as much out of Kent Hughes is still going to stay there. I think the expectation of how much you can actually squeeze might change in GM's minds, right? Like
Yeah.
their assignment will be like, I still need to get as much as I can out of this GM. It's just that the framework changes.
Yeah, agreed. I think the one guy that comes to mind that might be a target for a trade like that would be Mike Matheson. He's going into the last year of his contract. He's talking to the Canadiens in Buffalo about who knows what, but I imagine the thought of, hey, maybe I'd like an extension came up. I think if you're going to move a guy like that would be, there's not a lot of players like Mike Matheson, I think, available on the market who can sort of play both ways defensively. And I just talked about the left side logjam. This would definitely go a long way in solving that. Now you are now a lot younger on that left side, but it would be a signal to the younger guys that we are turning the team over to you. This is your team now. So I'm not advocating for trading Mike Matheson because, again, my thought has always been you need to be able to replace what he brings. Maybe you move him, you can move Hudson back to the left now and make another spot for a Reinbacher or somebody else to come in on the right. So there are ways to get around that, but I think this is a valuable question. Like maybe there's a chance the Canadiens have changed their mindset a little bit to go, maybe we stock up on picks and prospects again and then really hit it next year when a lot of teams probably bought now are like, crap, we're actually not very good. I think the Canadiens, it would kind of make sense to capitalize on that value now. The optics of it are rough. Don't get me wrong. Like the thought of they make the playoffs and okay, now we're selling pieces again. It'd be really difficult to like go back to that locker room and say, "Hey, we had a great summer, right, guys?" I think that's sort of where I am there. All right, last question for today from Paul Brenshaw. Don't know if you saw the piece in The Athletic, but Sean McIndoe has proposed a new trophy for the biggest playoff failure. He went back in time to taste the last 20 potential ignominious winners. That's a big word, Paul. I can't do that. What do you think of this idea? What should the trophy be called? And why shouldn't we consider the Leafs as perennial favorites to win it, like dynasty caliber levels? I'm going to answer that last part first. It's because the Toronto Maple Leafs have never actually been good enough to be considered playoff chokers. Yes, they always blow it, but they've also this was the first year they won a real division and it didn't matter at all. Every other year they won the fake Canada division and still, crapped themselves in the spring. And every other year they're like a 2-3 seed. We've kind of allowed them to tell us how great they are. And I've never really bought into the fact that this is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. So I don't really find them to be a team that, was a true disappointment. Who are some front runners for you? Like who? Oh, let's look at this last playoff round and like who do you have?
No, I'm completely on the opposite side of you. Okay. Because so first of all, shout out Sean McIndoe, like one of the best writers out there, one of the best people out there. Honestly, he inspired me to get into blogging about hockey. And then I met him and he was like truly just the nicest person. Like, and it's really like a lot of times when people inspire you, you meet them, they're just jerks. And he's really not. He's the opposite. He's amazing. So anyways, we love Sean McIndoe. But I want the trophy to be called the annual Toronto Maple Leafs loser trophy of playoff choking. That's what I want it to be called. And I want it only to ever be awarded to the Toronto Maple Leafs because I personally feel that nobody ever chokes as embarrassingly as they do.
Yeah, the Jake Gardiner Memorial Trophy for choking in the playoffs. I think that's fair. Like this year for playoff disappointment, like I would kind of throw Colorado in that conversation.
Yes.
Like to go, I know you guys got a tough matchup in the first round, but you're the Colorado Avalanche. You shouldn't be going out in the first round against anybody.
Exactly. I would also say the same thing about LA. Because they do the work and then they just can't get past that same one team, right?
Yeah.
That's one of them as well. I
throw
think
Carolina in there too, just constantly never able to like get over the hump.
Yeah, they can't do it. So those are some really good contenders. I just think it should be named after the Maple Leafs and should only be about the Maple Leafs.
Correct. I'm on board with that. That makes sense.
All right, it is time for our trivia because we got to get out of here and do another show.
Yeah, we're double dipping tonight. All right, let's do yesterday's question. Juraj Slafkovsky scored his first NHL goal against a team that no longer exists. Which of his current teammates can say the same about themselves? Do you remember the answer to this one, Laura?
Yes, I do. I thought it was a trick question because I thought it was a different team, but it is actually the same team, and it is Jake Evans.
It was Jake Evans. It was against the Arizona Coyotes on February 10th, 2020. Of course, Juraj Slafkovsky scored his first goal and then screamed in that guy's face. So, that was really, really fun. Dion Sir, Rach 5055, and Terry Hamilton with the correct answers on that one. All right, today's question. Former Montreal Canadian Gabriel Dumont announced his retirement on Thursday. He played 90 NHL games, scoring 4 goals and adding 5 assists. He only scored 1 goal as a member of the Montreal Canadiens on April 17th, 2013 in Pittsburgh in a 6-4 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Which former Montreal Canadian scored a goal for Pittsburgh in that game? A former Hab scored in that game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Who was it? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. We'll shout you out on the next episode and tell everybody how smart you are.
You heard the man. And in the meantime, you can subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Remember, there is a contest. Those pictures do exist. Just look at some previous episodes. We did show them to you. Also, you can find us all over social media. We're posting everywhere people are posting. Oh, Ian found the pictures. Right. So you can see them there. We are on TikTok at Locked On Canadians. We are on Blue Sky at Locked On Canadians. We are on Instagram at Locked On Canadians. And our Gmail is Locked On Canadians. Please get in touch with us. We were so thrilled to get an email from Richard today. So excited. It's Ian's first email from Richard, but just so happy you're still listening. So please, anything, like you have a kid, you're expecting a kid, you have good news, you're getting married, tell us about it. Anything related to meeting a Montreal Canadian, your first NHL game, all that kind of stuff. We want to hear it, and also tell us if it's okay to tell the listeners about it. That's LockedOnCanadians@gmail. You'll find my co-host all over social media at Maybe It's Ian. You'll find me at The Active Stick. I want to thank everyone so much for listening, and we will be back on Monday.